Welcome back to Starz Recapped. Today we're diving into one of the most chilling horror stories of 2025, The Conjuring: Last Rites. This time, the legendary demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren return for their final and most terrifying case yet. When a possessed priest begins spreading a curse that reaches deep into the Vatican itself, the Warrens are called out of retirement to confront a darkness older than Christianity itself. As ancient rituals collide with forbidden secrets, Lorraine must face visions that blur the line between faith and damnation, while Ed battles a force determined to claim his soul once and for all. Prepare for holy terror, shocking revelations, and a chilling conclusion to the Conjuring saga. Because this time, evil doesn't want your body, it wants your faith. So grab your rosary and turn down the lights. This is The Conjuring: Last Rites 2025, explained by Starz Recapped. The story opens in 1964 inside a quiet antique shop on the edge of town. A young couple, Ed and Lorraine Warren, famous for their work with the supernatural, arrive to investigate a terrifying mystery. The shop owner's daughter, Lucy, explains that ever since a strange mirror was brought into the store, things have never been the same. Her father, who ran the shop, died under mysterious circumstances, found hanging not long after the mirror appeared. Believing the object to be cursed, Lucy locked it away in a dusty storage room. But the eerie sounds, flickering lights, and chilling visions only grew worse. Determined to uncover the truth, Ed and Lorraine step forward to face the mirror themselves, unaware of the dark force waiting on the other side. As Ed and Lorraine step into the dim storage room, a heavy silence fills the air. Ed can't shake off the feeling that something is terribly wrong, especially with Lorraine expecting their first child. But she insists she'll be fine and reaches out to touch the mirror's cold, dusty frame. The moment her fingers brush the glass, a sharp pain rips through her stomach. Ed's heart stops. It's too soon. Panic sets in as he rushes her out of the shop and speeds toward the nearest hospital, barely 10 minutes away. Inside the delivery room, chaos unfolds. Doctors scramble, nurses shout, Lorraine is losing blood, and the power suddenly cuts out, plunging the room into darkness. Moments later, amid screams and prayers, their baby girl is born. But the joy turns to horror when the child doesn't cry. The monitors fall silent. Doctors do everything they can, but the baby shows no signs of life. Lorraine, drenched in tears, holds her motionless newborn and whispers a desperate prayer, "Please, bring her back." And then, against all odds, a faint cry echoes through the room. The baby breathes. The lifeless child has come back to life. But deep down, Lorraine can feel it. Something unnatural has just entered their world. The Warrens name their newborn Judy, a sweet and gentle child who quickly becomes the light of their lives. As the years pass, it becomes clear that Judy has inherited her mother's unique gift, the ability to sense things beyond the world of the living. Concerned for her daughter's peace, Lorraine begins teaching Judy how to control her power so she doesn't have to live in fear of the unseen. Years roll by, and soon it's 1986. The story shifts to a quiet town in Pennsylvania where Jack and Janet live with their 4 daughters, Heather, Dawn, and the mischievous twins Karen and Shannon, along with Jack's elderly parents. On this bright Sunday morning, the whole family is celebrating Heather's baptism. The house bursts with laughter, the smell of food, and the sound of Jack's old handycam capturing every joyful moment. But joy often hides what's waiting in the shadows. As Heather unwraps a gift from her grandparents, she finds a beautifully framed antique mirror, something they'd picked up from an old auction. Everyone admires it, unaware that this is the same cursed mirror that once destroyed a family decades ago. Moments later, as Heather leans forward to blow out her candles, the flames suddenly go out on their own. The room falls silent. Everyone looks around in confusion. No one touched them. No one breathed near them. Something else did. A few seconds after the lights flicker out, the ceiling suddenly caves in, crashing down and striking Heather on the head. Her family screams as chaos fills the room. The story then shifts miles away, where the Warrens are gathered at a cozy restaurant. Judy, now all grown up, is arranging a small celebration for her parents, a peaceful dinner to honor Ed and Lorraine's retirement after decades of battling the supernatural. But peace doesn't last long for the Warrens. Ed looks frail, his health slowly fading from years of facing dark forces. Just as laughter fills the air, Lorraine's smile vanishes. She feels a sudden chill, like someone invisible has entered the room. Judy notices it too. Her voice trembles as she quietly begins to pray. Then Lorraine's eyes widen in horror. A pale hand's shadow appears, resting gently on Judy's shoulder. and in the blink of an eye, it's gone. Not wanting to alarm Ed, the two women decide to stay silent, hiding the terrifying moment from him, afraid his weak heart won't handle the truth. Meanwhile, back in Pennsylvania, Janet, the mother of the injured Heather, is busy doing laundry in the basement. The hum of the washing machine fills the air when she suddenly hears someone whisper her name.
Janet.
She freezes. A dark silhouette moves in the corner, but when she switches on the light, no one's there. Later that evening, Janet stands in her kitchen, stirring dinner while chatting on her old corded phone. Suddenly, the line jerks violently, the cord tugged by something unseen. Annoyed, she rolls her eyes, assuming it's one of the kids playing around again. But when she glances toward the living room, the children sit still, eyes fixed on the TV, silent and unaware. If it wasn't them, then who or what pulled the cord? Upstairs, Janet's twin daughters are lost in their own world, playing happily with their dolls. Laughter fills the room until Shannon realizes one of her dolls is missing. She looks under the bed, behind the curtains, and then freezes. Standing in the corner is a twisted, ghostly woman, her hollow eyes fixed on Shannon. "Here, Susie," the girl whispers, but the figure doesn't move. A chilling silence fills the room. Later that night, Heather, tormented by the eerie presence of the antique mirror, can't take it anymore. She tells her sister Dawn they need to get rid of it. Now. She swears she can feel something watching her from the other side of the glass. The next morning, the sisters finally manage to throw the mirror out. Garbage collectors haul it away, tossing it into a crushing truck. But the moment the glass shatters, everything changes. Dawn collapses, screaming in agony, blood pouring from her mouth. And then, horrifyingly, she begins coughing up shards of glass. The family watches in terror, unable to understand what's happening. The cursed mirror may be gone, but its evil has found a new host. The story then turns to Ed Warren, who's at the hospital for a checkup. Years of battling dark forces have taken their toll. His heart is growing weaker. The doctor warns him that another heart attack could end his life. That night, Ed returns home to a warm surprise. Lorraine has prepared a small birthday celebration, candles flickering softly in the dim light. Despite everything, he feels grateful to still have her by his side. Soon after, Judy arrives with her boyfriend Tony, introducing him to her parents. Their dear friend Father Gordon joins in, offering a blessing for the family. Laughter and love fill the house once more. For a moment, everything feels normal. But peace never lasts long in the Warrens' world. As Judy steps into her childhood room, memories flood back, and then the air turns cold. From the shadows, a familiar doll appears, Annabelle. Judy gasps, her voice trembling as she begins to pray the words her mother once taught her, the same words that have kept their family safe for decades. But this time, the darkness might be listening. Moments after the commotion upstairs, Tony rushes into the room, worried for Judy's safety. But she quickly forces a smile, assuring him that everything's fine, even though deep down, she knows something isn't right. A few minutes later, Lorraine calls everyone to the garage, where Ed is waiting with a grin. He challenges Tony to a lighthearted game of ping pong, joking that he might need to hop around a little to keep up. The laughter helps ease the tension, at least for a while. When Judy steps away for a moment, Tony decides it's time. He nervously pulls a small ring from his pocket and speaks privately with her parents. With sincerity in his voice, he tells Ed and Lorraine that he truly loves Judy and wants their blessing to marry her. The moment is heartfelt and slightly awkward. Ed teases him, while Lorraine smiles warmly and says, "Be a good husband to her." Just then, Judy walks back in and instantly knows what's happening. "Is that for me?" she asks softly. Tony nods, blushing. "In the car?" she smiles. "Sure," he replies, and they all share a rare moment of peace. But miles away, that peace doesn't exist. Inside Jack's house, the atmosphere has grown cold and heavy. Dawn, still traumatized by the mirror incident, begs her father to move out. Her voice trembles as she pleads. She knows something evil is still in the house. But Jack refuses to give in to fear. He tries to stay calm, assuring her that he's already contacted a priest to perform a house blessing the following week. He truly believes everything will be okay. Dawn, however, can't hide her frustration. A week feels like a lifetime when the walls themselves seem to whisper your name. "You're just gonna let us stay here?" she cries. "It wants to kill us." Jack shakes his head. "No, I won't let that happen." That night, as the family sleeps, the house grows deathly silent. The air turns cold. Jack, about to turn in for the night, hears the faint creak of his bedroom door. It slowly swings open on its own. He stands frozen, his breath visible in the air. A shadow moves toward him. And for the first time, Jack feels the same paralyzing terror his daughter warned him about. Something in that house is awake. Late that night, Heather lies awake, unable to shake the unease that's haunted her ever since the mirror incident. To distract herself, she picks up her dad's old handycam and starts rewatching footage from their family celebration, the day of her baptism party. At first, everything seems normal. Laughter, candles, and smiles frozen in time. But then, she pauses. As she rewinds the clip of herself blowing out the candles, a cold chill runs through her veins. There, standing beside her, is a shadowy figure, tall and faceless. And when she slows the video down, it becomes horrifyingly clear. It wasn't her who blew out the candles. It was the figure. Before she can react, a loud thud echoes behind her. A dark, heavy shape suddenly emerges from the shadows. A man-like entity lunges toward her. Heather's piercing scream shatters the silence, waking the whole house. Moments later, Janet rushes in, finding her daughter curled up on the floor, trembling and pale, her eyes wide with pure terror. That night becomes the breaking point. The priest who was supposed to help can't come until next week. He still needs official approval from the church. But for Janet, waiting another day means risking her family's lives. In a desperate move, she contacts a local news station, telling them everything: the strange noises, the shadows, the attacks. She hopes that by going public, the church will finally take their case seriously. Within hours, the story spreads like wildfire. Reporters flood the neighborhood, cameras flashing, neighbors whispering in fear. The once quiet street becomes a circus of flashing lights and questions. But inside that house, one truth remains: the evil that haunts them doesn't care about cameras, and it's not done yet. During an emotional interview with reporters, Janet insists that her family isn't looking for fame or sympathy. All they want is help. Her trembling voice carries a warning to anyone listening. This isn't a hoax. Something evil lives in our home. Meanwhile, far away from the chaos, Judy Warren is focused on something joyful: her upcoming wedding. Accompanied by her mother, Lorraine, she visits a quiet bridal boutique to try on her gown. The atmosphere feels peaceful, at least at first. The designer, Brenda, steps away to take a phone call, leaving Judy alone in front of the mirror. That's when the temperature in the room drops, the light flickers, and a strange cold breath brushes against her neck. Judy's smile fades. Her hands begin to tremble as an invisible force presses against her chest, draining her strength. She looks around, whispering, "Brenda, are you still there?" No reply. Then, just as the presence fades, she exhales in relief, until her reflection in the mirror moves on its own, lunging toward her with a scream. The sound of breaking glass echoes through the shop. Lorraine rushes in, finding her daughter pale and shaking. Without saying a word, she knows exactly what's happening. The evil has found their family again. Back in Pennsylvania, Father Gordon finally arrives at Jack and Janet's home after the haunting makes national headlines. The couple welcomes him with tears of hope, sharing every horrifying detail. But what they don't know is that Father Gordon's visit isn't official. The church hasn't given its blessing. He's acting on faith alone, risking everything to protect them. As he walks through each darkened room, he feels it. A heavy, suffocating presence clinging to the walls. He whispers softly, "Spirit, what happened here?" The silence answers louder than words. Knowing this evil is beyond him, Father Gordon vows to return to the church and seek permission for a full exorcism. "I'll be back soon," he promises, but that promise would be his last. Later that night, inside his dim church office, Gordon kneels to pray for guidance when the candles begin to flicker. The air turns icy cold. He hears his name whispered from the shadows.
Father Gordon.
The realization hits him like a chill. The demon from the house has followed him here. In terror, he clutches his crucifix, only for it to burst into flames. Consumed by the entity's power, Father Gordon's mind unravels. His final prayer turns into a scream as the darkness commands him to take his own life. By morning, the news spreads everywhere. The priest who tried to save the family has become the demon's next victim. The following week, Ed and Lorraine Warren stand among a small crowd gathered for Father Gordon's funeral. They've lost a dear friend, a man who spent his life fighting the same darkness they've faced for decades. As the ceremony ends and people begin to drift away, Judy quietly steps forward toward the coffin. Something deep inside tells her to reach out. The moment her hand touches the cold wood, her eyes go blank. A vision floods her mind. Dark corridors, the sound of whispers, a presence watching her from behind. When she snaps back to reality, her heart is pounding. She knows what she saw wasn't just a dream. Later that day, Lorraine, trying to calm her nerves, distracts herself with housework. Standing by the sink, she absent-mindedly washes dishes until the drain begins to gurgle and clog. As she reaches in to clear it, a sudden wave of dread hits her. Her hands freeze midair. Something's wrong. Something's happened to Judy. Just then, the front door bursts open. Tony rushes in, breathless. "Mrs. Warren," he says, "Judy's gone to Jack's house." Lorraine's face drains of color. Without a word, she calls out for Ed, and together they race to the car. When they arrive at the Pennsylvania neighborhood, chaos greets them. Reporters, flashing cameras, and frightened neighbors crowd the street outside Jack's home. Pushing through the mob, Ed and Lorraine hurry inside, hearts pounding. To their relief, Judy is safe, shaken, but unharmed. She explains that she came there after her vision at Father Gordon's funeral. She's convinced his death wasn't natural, but the work of the same demonic force still lurking inside this house. Her voice trembles as she looks at her parents and says, "It's not over, it's waiting for us." Desperate and terrified, Judy pleads with her parents, begging Ed and Lorraine to step in and help the Smurl family before it's too late. She knows only her parents have the courage and the faith to stand against such darkness. At first, Ed hesitates. His health has been failing, and facing something this powerful could be dangerous. But when he looks into his daughter's eyes and sees the same fear he's felt 100 times before, he finally nods. The Warrens agree to help. Before performing the exorcism, Ed asks Jack and Janet Smurl to recount how all of this began. As they speak, the air in the room changes. The temperature drops, the lights flicker, Lorraine's eyes narrow. She can feel it. Something dark is listening. The atmosphere grows heavier with every passing second until the silence feels almost alive. Amid the tension, Judy quietly apologizes to her mother for acting on her own and causing her to worry. Lorraine gives her a soft, reassuring look, but before she can reply, a sudden thud echoes from upstairs. Lorraine instantly senses danger. She turns to Judy and whispers, "Stay here, no matter what happens." Lorraine slowly climbs the staircase, her flashlight cutting through the thick darkness. Out of the corner of her eye, she catches a shadowy figure darting across the hallway. It's gone in an instant. Moments later, she finds Ed and tells him what she's discovered: the truth about the house. Years ago, this land belonged to a farmer who, in a jealous rage, murdered his wife and her parents with an axe before taking his own life. But Lorraine knows it's not just their spirits haunting this place. Something far older and far more evil has taken control, using those lost souls as puppets to torment the living. It's not just a haunting, Ed. It's possession. Meanwhile, inside the Smurl family home, Judy hears her mother's voice softly calling her from upstairs. The tone sounds calm, familiar, comforting. But what she doesn't realize is that it isn't her mother at all. It's the demonic presence mimicking Lorraine's voice, luring her into a trap. Curious and uneasy, Judy slowly climbs the staircase, her footsteps echoing through the silence. As she reaches the attic, she freezes in shock. There, in the dim light, stands the same antique mirror that was once shattered years ago, now perfectly whole again. A dark, heavy energy pulses from it, filling the air like static. Suddenly, a faint child's voice whispers her name. Judy spins around, and before she can react, a gigantic, distorted version of Annabelle lunges out of the shadows, sending her screaming in terror. Hearing her cries, Ed and Lorraine rush upstairs, bursting into the attic. They find Judy on the floor, shaking and pale, struggling to breathe. Trembling, she points toward the mirror, barely able to speak. When Ed and Lorraine look, they can't believe their eyes. The cursed mirror is real, sitting right there in the Smurl family's home. They gather Jack and Janet and explain everything. Ed reveals that this mirror is the source of all the paranormal activity tormenting the house. It's an ancient object that holds immense demonic power. The Warrens once contained it decades ago, but after their collection was sold off following bankruptcy, the mirror passed through many hands until now. Determined to end it once and for all, Ed and Lorraine prepare to secure the mirror and move it to their artifact containment room, where it can never harm anyone again. But just as they lift it, the mirror suddenly topples forward, narrowly missing them as it crashes to the ground with a thunderous shatter. For a brief second, silence fills the room. Then, Lorraine gasps. Judy is gone. She turns, scanning the shadows, and when she finally finds her daughter, her heart nearly stops. Standing in the corner, Judy's eyes are blank, her expression cold. The voice that comes from her lips is not her own. "Judy, please, fight it." The evil spirit that haunted Judy since before she was even born has returned, this time stronger and more vengeful than ever. Consumed by darkness, Judy becomes fully possessed. In a terrifying outburst, she attacks Lorraine, knocking her unconscious before dragging her into the basement and locking the door tight. Upstairs, Ed watches in horror, shouting for Judy to fight back. But the strain and panic take a toll on him. His chest tightens and he collapses from a heart attack. Moments later, Lorraine regains consciousness in the pitch-black basement. Dazed, she stumbles toward the door, only to be confronted by the axe-wielding spirit of the murderer who once lived there. Just as the ghost raises his weapon to strike, Tony bursts in, pulling Lorraine to safety just in time. Meanwhile, upstairs, Ed miraculously survives, his willpower keeping him alive long enough to shout for Jack to get his family out of the cursed house. But as Lorraine and Tony race back up the stairs to help, they're met with a horrifying sight. Judy's lifeless body hangs from a noose. Panicked, they rush forward and cut her down. Ed holds his daughter's body in trembling hands as Lorraine performs chest compressions. Tony desperately gives her air. Judy suddenly coughs and gasps for air. She's alive, but their relief doesn't last. Distorted, demonic sound rises. Across the room, the cursed mirror begins spinning violently, glowing with dark light. The entire house shakes as the demonic force lashes out, sending Tony flying across the room and pinning him beneath the mirror's frame. Desperate, Ed begins shouting the words of an exorcism, but the entity only grows angrier. Objects fly, lights burst, and the room fills with deafening screams. Realizing there's only one way to end it, Lorraine takes Ed's hand and calls Judy forward. Together, the three of them touch the mirror, their voices rising in one final powerful prayer. A blinding light floods the room, and with a thunderous roar, the dark energy collapses in on itself. Gone. When the dust settles, everyone is safe. Ed, Lorraine, Judy, Tony, and the Smurl family all survive. Though the memories of that night will never fade, life slowly returns to normal. The cursed mirror is locked away in Ed and Lorraine's museum, sealed forever to prevent its evil from ever escaping again. Judy and Tony later marry and start a peaceful life together. Lorraine even has a vision of a brighter future, surrounded by love, laughter, and grandchildren. In the story's closing moments, Ed and Lorraine dedicate their lives to sharing their knowledge with others, writing about their encounters and teaching students about the unseen world. They continue helping people from afar, their bond unbroken. And a final note appears on screen. Ed and Lorraine Warren remained married for over 60 years, united in faith, love, and their lifelong battle against the darkness. As the years passed, time finally began to weigh on the couple who had spent their lives battling the darkness. At 74, Ed suffered a devastating stroke, leaving him weakened. Yet through it all, Lorraine stayed by his side, caring for him with the same love and devotion that carried them through every haunting and hardship. 5 years later, Ed peacefully passed away, leaving behind a legacy that inspired generations of believers. Lorraine continued on alone, never remarrying and dedicating the rest of her life to faith and compassion. At the age of 92, she too passed away quietly, reuniting with the love of her life at last. And so their incredible journey comes to an end, a story of love, courage, and the unbreakable bond between two souls who face the unknown together. This has been another story brought to you by Starz Recapped, where real legends never die.